Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Moments in the Word. I am your host, Evangelist Glenn Mills. I do pray that if you've got a prayer need, remember, always send that to us. You can do that by Facebook. You can do that by email. And I promise you, Kim and I will be praying for you and lifting you up and expecting great and mighty things to happen in your life. But thank you so much for tuning in, but always send us your prayer needs and also your praise items. When God answers that prayer, we like to rejoice with you, not only pray with you, but rejoice with you. I want to talk this morning a few moments about the Acts of the prophets. Now, we've always heard about the Acts of the apostles. But what about the Acts of the prophets? The Bible does instruct us there were things that they do as well. Now, so many times when we hear about prophets today, if we're not careful, it's all about the good. Everything's going good. God's going to bless us. God's going to prosper. God's going to bring down all of our enemies and all of that stuff. And my friend, a lot of that is true. But too often we hear too much about the two things instead of the four things. Now, what do I mean by that? When we look into the scripture today, we're going to see 4 words of destruction, but only 2 words of restoration. See, a lot of times God's trying to get our attention so that He can bring the restoration. Too often we hear prophets today talking about the restoration and the blessing, but they don't want to deal with the destruction. So let me get into the scripture and you'll understand what I'm talking about. In Jeremiah chapter 1 verse 1, look at what it says. See, I, being God, have this day set before thee, which is Jeremiah, I have set thee over the nations and over the kingdoms. Now here are the acts of the prophets. Listen to them. To root out, to pull down, to destroy, and to throw down, and to build, and to plant. Now notice the order there. First order is always important when you're reading the Bible. Whatever comes first is of greater importance. The first and second commandment. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, body, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. It didn't say love your neighbor as yourself, then love God with your total being. First order is important. So God is showing us a lot of times, let's be honest, there's got to be correction. There's got to be instruction before there can be restoration and blessing. And I really want us to be careful with the prophets that we're listening to, because too many times they're talking about the blessing and the restoration process when they've completely ignored the destruction, the instruction, the correction, because they don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. They don't want to hurt their offerings. They don't want to hurt their building program. Come on, somebody, preach up in here with me this morning. Now, Jeremiah, listen to this, was not set over the nations and the kingdoms as a prince to rule them. Because notice he says, I have set thee over the nation. Some people say, well, he's made him an authority. He's made him a ruler. But that's not what God's talking about. He was not set over the nations and the kingdoms to be a prince to rule them, but instead a prophet to prophesy God's judgments, God's warnings, and God's promises. So not to rule, but to prophesy. Now, let's look at these words, what he was saying. First, he says, root out. He said, I've set you up to prophesy the word of instruction, to first root out. That means getting down to the foundation. Now, many of you, if you know anything about spraying for weeds, you want something that's not only going to kill the surface weed, but it's going to kill the root. We call that getting down to the foundation. The prophet, the true prophet of God, is not just going to be dealing with what he sees on the outside. He's going to get to the heart of the matter. Come on, somebody. He's going to get down to the root of the problem. So God's telling Jeremiah, you're going to be getting to the heart of Israel. You're going to be dealing with their idolatry, their sin, their rebellion, their selfishness. Get down to the root of their heart. That's where the wickedness is. So he's going to root out. He's going to get down to the heart of the people. That's what a prophet does. Then he's going to pull down. That means, as you looked into the Old Testament, when a good king would rise up, the first thing he would do was pull down the idols. Pull down the idols. Pull down the things that are causing people to sin. Pull down the things that people are worshiping other than God. Pull down getting into themselves, their own selfish ambitions, their own purposes, their own plan. Like you would pull down a building, pull it down. He said root it up and pull it down. But then he says to destroy, to means to annihilate what? The old mindsets. Get rid of it altogether. You know, sometimes when you got weeds, you got to clip them off and throw them away so the seeds can't get back into the soil. He's saying here, destroy the old mindsets so that the new can come. Wow. He says, take them out of the old position so they can be repositioned. That's what the prophet does. He roots out, he pulls down, he destroys the old mindset, the humanistic thinking, the worldly thinking, and gets the people back to the spiritual thinking, the godliness that God requires. But then he says throw down. To throw down. That's just like a building that's been neglected and abandoned. It's no good. It becomes dangerous. A life that's not consumed in the things of God becomes dangerous. It becomes self-absorbing. It becomes ruined. And he says tear it down. Tear down those lifestyles of sin, of disobedience and rebellion. So God says so that I can what? I can rebuild. I can build something that's better, something that's stronger, something that's going to last. Godliness and holiness and purity. Oh boy, I just want to preach this morning. But then he says build. Now it's time to build. Now that you have laid that foundation, you've dealt with the issues, Jeremiah. You've dealt with the sin. You've dealt with the idolatry. You've dealt with the mindset. Now it's time to build up. Now it's time to build up the new commitment, the new heart, the new beginning. You see, God gives us instruction, but he'll always bring in a blessing. Today, when God corrects you, receive it. When God tells you there's something you're doing, some way you're thinking, some way you're behaving, when the man of God, the prophet of God, the woman of God tells you, turn away from it. It is God trying to tell you, I've got something better. I want to do a new thing inside of you. I want to bring a refreshing in, but you've got to let the other go. You've got to be rooted out. You've got to be pulled down. You've got to be, some things have got to be destroyed and thrown down so that I can rebuild. But then he says to plant. Well, what's that got to do with it? That's new life. New life in Jesus Christ. Sometimes we need to be revitalized. We need new life. We need to grow in that relationship with God. That's what a true prophet does. My friends, today there's a lot of great prophets out there, but it ain't all gloom and doom. And at the same time, it ain't all blessing either. You're going to find out if it's a true prophet, there's going to be a good mixture there. But here we see 4 words of destruction, 2 words of restoration. But my friend, that restoration is worth it if we'll allow the correction of the Lord to do what it desires to do. So never rebel against the instruction of the Lord. When God tells us something, receive it into your heart. Let the word do its work. Let the prophet, the true prophet, do their work. And you'll find out that God's got a great thing waiting at the end of the instruction. There's going to be restoration, rebuilding, a new beginning, a new start, being made fresh again, coming alive again, growing again. That's what God desires to do. That's what a true prophet does. The acts of the prophets. I hope you've enjoyed this. If so, you may want to send it on to someone else you think would be blessed by it as well. Have a great day, and we'll be back with you soon.